Hi, I'm Beth Anderson. I am a former teacher, now an author, and I write the kinds of books that I love to use in the classroom. A few of my titles are Lizzie Demands a Seat, Smelly Kelly and His Super Senses, and Tad Lincoln's Restless Wriggle. But today we're here to talk about the new one, Thomas Jefferson's Battle for Science, Bias, Truth, and a Mighty Moose. This is my fourth book about the American Revolution, and it's a time that I find really fascinating because it's so much more than a military battle. It's a time of new ideas in all sorts of areas. And if you saw Hamilton or know that song called A World Turned Upside Down, that's exactly what they were calling those times. And this is also a time when science caught the interest of everyday people like us. When I explored the idea for this book, it had my top three elements I love in any story: history, science, and humor. I start with research and then I go through the writing process just like you do. Only for me, it takes a lot longer. Once a manuscript is accepted by a publisher, then the publishing process begins. And that generally takes 2 years. One of my very favorite parts of being an author happens in the publishing process. It's when I get to see how an illustrator brings life to the words that I write. The illustration process is such a mystery to me. And something that most people don't know is that as the author, I don't get to talk to the illustrator until after the book is finished. So I'm really excited today to meet Jeremy Holmes, the illustrator, to talk about how our ideas came together in Thomas Jefferson's Battle for Science. Hi, Jeremy. I am so glad you're here.
Hi, Beth. Hi, guys. I'm Jeremy, and I'm a picture book illustrator from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I've illustrated all types of picture books. See, we got The Eye That Never Sleeps, and that's a book about Abraham Lincoln. And we've got Road Trip, a book about four friends, Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, Harvey Firestone, and John Burroughs, and they're the ones that actually started the camping movement in the United States. And my favorite type of story, obviously, to draw is a true story. I love nonfiction, and like Beth was talking about, research is critical. When you're drawing books for nonfiction, it's super important to do your research to make sure those images are historically accurate. Let's give an example. Okay, so say you're in the United States and it's 1860, all right, and you've got to draw a flag. Okay, how many stars are on that flag? Well, how many states are there? And there were 33. But just the next year, say you have to draw the flag and it's 1861. Well, you would have to know that there'd be 34 stars on the flag because Kansas was admitted into the United States. Drawing for nonfiction also lets you learn about some of the world's most interesting people, past and present, and you get to discover fun facts about them. For instance, when I was researching about Lincoln, I found out that he was a wrestler. He won 300 matches and was a county champion. I learned about, when I was doing the research for Road Trip, I learned about Thomas Edison, that when he invented something or when he got an idea for an invention, he couldn't sleep at all. He would work for days and days, and the only thing he'd do is take these tiny little naps. I find facts and stories like these fascinating. So when I was asked to illustrate Thomas Jefferson's Battle for Science, Bias, Truth, and a Mighty Moose, I knew there was a whole world of strange and wonderful research to uncover and drawings to make. Beth, what inspired you to write this story?
Well, it all started with Thomas Jefferson's fascination with mammoths. He was really obsessed. And then that led to the moose. So once I decided to dig into the story, I spent a lot of time thinking about how I would want to tell the story. And I really latched onto the ideas of misinformation, when people give you the wrong information about truth, different ideas about truth, and how do we know what's true? History is full of interesting tidbits, but my challenge as an author is always, how to make that story meaningful for you. How do I connect it to our world today? And it always has to be more than a report of what I learned. It has to have a special angle. So I spend a lot of time researching. I'm learning new things, I'm searching for answers to questions, and I'm organizing my ideas. That's all really part of my pre-writing stage, which is really a long period of time for me. And I love that we get to see a different side of Thomas Jefferson in this story. This piece of history is kind of quirky, and it has some really important ideas. It made me think about how we decide whether something is good or bad, and about truth, and how important it is for us all to be critical thinkers and to ask a lot of questions. I wrote and revised for a year and a half. I had 46 revisions. One of the things I really enjoy is discovering the personalities of people from the past. Like, how did they respond to the world around them? What happened when they made mistakes or when they had huge challenges? And I always find out that when we see these people as human beings that really aren't that different than we are, then it's easy to connect and that history becomes real. The opening of the book shares Thomas Jefferson's love of science. And I loved learning about how he carried a little notepad and a pencil in his pocket all the time, and he measured everything. In the opening spread, you can see some of the things that he measured. He was even recording the weather, the temperature, as the Congress met to revise and vote on the Declaration of Independence. Even then, he was thinking about science. Well, one of my very favorite illustrations comes a bit later in the book, after Jefferson decides to battle for truth. He uses scientific inquiry and he sets out to write a book with the real facts. So I'm going to read you just a tiny bit of this piece. As the war for independence ended, Thomas's war on faulty facts continued. He verified data, analyzed numbers, and drew conclusions. Even without the weight of a mammoth, he had enough evidence to prove Buffon wrong. And prove it he would. With his own book, Thomas's thoughts boomed as his pen marched across the page, describing wildlife in America, attacking falsehoods, quashing Buffon's theory. Now, one of my very favorite sentences that I refused to let go of through all those 46 revisions was, Thomas's thoughts boomed as his pen marched across the page. And the illustration that came with it when Jeremy did the art is one of my very favorites. I can totally connect as a writer to this illustration of the ideas exploding in Thomas Jefferson's head, because I just feel the same way as I struggle to organize my thoughts on the page. It was absolutely perfect. So, Jeremy, what was one of your favorite illustrations to do?
Let's see. This one's actually pretty easy. One of my favorite illustrations from the book is where Thomas Jefferson is realizing where Buffon is getting his information from. And where he was getting it from were these travelers that were in the colonies, and they were writing these journals and these notes. The problem is some of these notes were pretty ridiculous, or as Beth has been talking about, they were misinformation. One such note was from a Swedish explorer, Peter Kalm. In his writings, Peter talks about how he witnessed a bear attacking a cow by biting a hole into its hide and blowing it up till it virtually popped like a balloon. This definitely wasn't true, but it was fun to draw. Beth's story is unique and wonderful, and my goal as an illustrator was to highlight this story and take it to another level.
And you absolutely did, Jeremy. I love, love, love the art. You know, Thomas Jefferson hoped that future generations, like all of you that are listening, would carry the science forward by exploring and investigating and questioning. And in our world today, we are bombarded with information from all sorts of sources. And it's often really hard to figure out fact from opinion and to think our way past bias and assumptions. We hope that you'll love this story as much as we do, and that this book will get you thinking. How do you measure truth? How do you know whether to believe or trust something? What questions would you ask to find out the truth?
Thanks, guys, for spending time with us. Beth and I both hope you enjoy the book.
Bye-bye.